Hi Gretchen, Mallory. Here's your wreath making 101. Here we go. Okay, here's your frame. It's about a 10 or 12 inch frame. You need some wire on a paddle, it's easier. Some clippers, some greens, and gloves. First thing we're going to show you is how to trim your evergreens. It's a lot faster if you trim a bunch of greens first.
Make bunches.
So that you can make your bunches. So somebody can just be trimming and piling your trimmings in a pile. Then it'll be a lot easier to make your bunches.
And you can mix your greens.
And if you have different kinds of greens, you can mix your greens. Makes for a pretty wreath. So the next thing you're going to do is you're going to gather your greens into a bunch. You want to make several bunches before you apply them to your wreath. It'll make your wreath making a lot easier. So you want to gather a bunch of greens in one hand till it's a small bouquet like that.
I usually tie this one on.
The first one can be tied on. Or you can just wrap it around a couple times. That's what I do.
Okay.
Okay, so you're going to wrap it around a couple times.
And then you're going to end up with your paddle in the middle.
And leaving your paddle in the middle of your wreath, you're going to gather together a second bunch with your pile of cut greens. That's why it's nice to have just a pile of greens at your workstation. Then you just lay your next pile.
Make sure you cover up the stems of the previous one.
Right, so you're covering the stems of your previous pile.
And then your paddle in the middle.
Paddle in the middle, wrap
Twice,
leaving the paddle again in the middle of your wreath. And you can see how here we've now covered two sections of the wreath. And you're going to continue to go around in that same fashion, adding a new bunch of greens covering the stem each time. Now we're going to show you another way you can try. This is another technique that you can try. It's similar to the other one. What you're going to do is make some bunches ahead of time. Same as before, cut your greens.
Yeah.
In this technique, we're going to make our bunches ahead of time. We're going to take our cut greens, and just with a little bit of wire, we're going to wrap our bunches just a couple times around with some wire to make our bunches ahead of time. We're only going to make a couple of bunches, but you could make a pile of bunches ahead of time. Enough to make all of your wreaths. So, when you have all of your bunches, take your bunches, you have your wreath, attach your first bunch with your paddle wire in the center. Then just take a bunch, place it over the stems of the previous bunch, wrap 2 times with the wire, leaving the wire in the center.
pull it tight.
Yes, pull tightly. Take your next bunch, place over the stem, wrap twice with wire. Make sure you pull tightly. And continue around until your wreath is complete. And you'll have a nice full wreath. When you get to when you've gone all the way around, and you get to this last section, the trick is to pull up what was your very first bunch. Place your final bunch underneath and wire it in tightly. This will give you a complete coverage of your wreath with no beginning and no end. Okay, never be afraid to use a little bit extra wire, and when you're all done, you can wire in some pine cones to cover any bare spots, and you can also use hot glue to add some pine cones, red berries, and you can also add individual stems. If you have any bare spots, you can, with hot glue, you can do some filling if you need to. But pine cones, extra stems, can correct any mistakes you may have along the way.
Okay.
Good luck.